Welcome to Married and Family Living with the Grasleys on 92.7, a show focused on the domestic church, the family, which is the foundation of faith and spirituality.
We hope you find our stories encouraging and helpful as we share our challenges of married and family living.
Well, good evening, Linda. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, honey. How are you?
That's good. I can't believe we've done 13 episodes.
Yeah, lucky 13.
And I thought it would be easier after 13, but it seems like we're always rushing to get here and don't have enough time to rehearse.
Well, this one we did a little.
Yeah, we did rehearse a little bit. So, Do we want to announce what we're talking about?
Sure. Well, I think we mentioned it in the last broadcast. Last broadcast, we talked about different learning styles and different types of homeschooling. So now we're going to be talking about beyond high school.
Beyond high school, and we're entering that as we're going through this. So. That's
our disclaimer. We haven't been there yet. We're working through it. So we're just some of our thoughts on guiding your teens on the path after high school.
Yeah, so kind of what it spurred this radio show was at the chicken barbecue in August, I was shucking corn with some parishioners, and Father John asked me, he goes, well, Al, how are your kids doing? And kind of told the story of how Catherine is a senior this year, and she's homeschooled, and we're kind of, both Lynn and I have been struggling a little bit about being the guidance counselor, I guess is what you want to say, because she's very independent, and we're very kind of hands-off with her, and we're kind of letting her figure out what her path wants to be. And I was just kind of talking out loud. There was probably 20 people shucking corn there because I think we did like 650 ears of corn for the August chicken barbecue. And one mom who I guess is an acquaintance that we both know, but she's not really a good friend, but just an acquaintance. We see each other. She said, well, you shouldn't feel like that because my child's a senior and we're getting the same brush off from the guidance counselor there.
We're feeling like we're inadequate, that we're not providing our kid enough guidance, and yet everybody feels that way, regardless of what kind of schooling.
Right. So after that conversation, we really kind of, Lynn and I talked and was like, we need to step it up and just become the best guidance counselors ever.
That's what I felt like. Like, then we can be the best guidance counselor ever, right?
Right. So
it's really kind of lit a fire under us we did some college visits earlier, but we're doing some other things that are catered specifically to Catherine's interests. But it really made us think about our experiences and how different it is for kids now compared to when we were deciding on a college.
Yeah, so when we decided on college, it was way back in the 80s. Gosh, it was a long time ago, but we were at that point. I think college was just kind of coming to fruition. It was like, do you need to go to college? Do you have to go to college? Should you get a job on the way out? Now, I grew up, it was interesting when Lynn and I were talking about this episode, how we kind of always thought our growing up experiences were the same, but they're quite different, actually.
I grew up in a super rural town, and most people did not go to college. If they did go to college, it was a 2-year community college. And also, you grew up in
Rochester, New York, which is Kodak town at that point. It was 1983. Everybody would, I'm getting a job at Kodak. I'm going to work at the plant. I'm going to put cameras together. I'm going to make film.
Right. And that was similar. My dad worked at the factory where everybody, almost all the parents worked there. If they weren't farmers or teachers, they worked at this factory. So that's where people pretty much ended up in one of those 3 locations.
So what's very interesting is Linda's parents both went to college and my parents did not.
Right.
And
no one had gone to college.
Yes, no one had gone to college in my family, yes.
Ever. My grandparents went to college.
Yes, so you were destined to go to college.
It was just, we were going to go to college. My parents didn't say, you are going to college. But it was just, that's what LeBarons did.
That was expected.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to play football. That's kind of was my driving force to go try to get into college. And of course, college back then, I think I applied to 4 schools. First of all, colleges back then would not accept you if you weren't good enough. And they didn't all have sports like they do now. I think I applied to 4 schools. 2 of them said no. And only one had football now all 4 schools have
Have
football.
football.
Yeah, which
and
is
4-year degrees, not just 2
not
years.
just 2 years, right? So
And we grew up in New York State, so probably much like the forms now where you can apply for a whole bunch of different colleges. There was a state college form, and you could do up to 3, I think you could apply for. And I applied for 3. One didn't even have my major.
but you applied anyway
I don't know why.
because you're going to
I
college.
thought it was a cool place. It was up in the Adirondacks. I thought that was awesome. And one didn't accept me that had my program, so it left
It left Alfred Tech.
Alfred Tech, and that's where we met, right? But the other thing is I wanted to go to a 4-year school. I was going to be an engineer. My father went to a 4-year school, Clarkson University, also up in the mountains. And my parents were wise enough to say, I don't think you'll make it in that 4-year college.
Your parents were good guidance
They were
counselors.
wise because I failed out of engineering my first semester.
So,
But anyway,
but my parents were kind of like, I don't know if you want to go to college or not. I mean, my dad was a tool maker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So it was really kind of up in the air. Most of my peers, my senior friends, all went to college, at least for 1 semester.
right.
But so somehow computers were just coming online too, and my mother was like, "Hey, why don't you check out this program at Alfred Tech? It was computer graphics technology." And I'm like, "All right, I guess so. We'll see how it goes from there." And
Right.
Alfred Tech is where my uncle went,
That's right.
and he met his wife, but they didn't finish.
Yeah.
'Cause
They
they
went for 1 semester, met each other, fell in love, and got married.
Kind of like us, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. We always said that.
Right. But so I went down there, and I personally wanted to work. I mean, that was my thing. I only wanted to go 2 years because I was like, hey, let's go out and start working.
You were ready to work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the other difference we were talking about. As a high schooler, my dad didn't want us to work unless it was babysitting, something that wasn't a long-term commitment. Where
I was working when I was 12.
yeah,
Yeah. I was cutting lawns. I was doing all of this other stuff. And then when I got to be 16, I got a job at Buckman's Ice Cream.
ice cream was
Village.
great. Oh, it was so
and
good.
Donuts shop. And
Right.
then I got a job at Wegmans fixing shopping carts because that's where Wegmans started. Probably some people
In Rochester.
in
yeah.
Rochester. Yeah, people
Yeah.
don't know that. But
Yeah. Little trivia.
right. Little trivia.
The guidance counselor, they did like this assessment kind of thing, right? I don't know if you had
What color
that.
is your parachute?
Yeah.
I
lame.
remember my mother.
Oh, I hated it. Well, and they did some other thing where they plugged in some things from some questionnaire, and they told me that I was destined to be a librarian. That's what I should be.
Really?
Could you imagine me not being able to talk in a library?
That'd
I
be
love
kinda hard.
books, but yeah.
That'd be kind of hard. I don't remember what mine is. I remember reading the book, and I was like, "This is stupid."
I want to go work.
Yeah, let me go work somewhere.
I know. Too funny. Well, anyway, so really, we were just thinking about, again, we have our first going through this process, and so we're learning as we go. But I think I've finally figured out, after 17 years, really the important thing is focusing on the gifts
Of your kid.
that our children have, their talents and their gifts, and to help foster them, but not pigeonhole them. I mean, we had Kate pegged as a veterinarian for how long? Because she's an animal lover.
Yeah, 5th grade, I think we said, we got to get her into veterinarian school, which
Right.
is, I think that's kind of way parents are nowadays. Like, we got to check it out right away.
Right, get her into the best school, Virginia Tech. She's got to do all these certain things. And then she's like, I don't really want to be a vet. That's my hobby.
Yes.
But it also showed that what I didn't see in it is that she has this compassion to serve and to work hard. Like working on a farm is what she loves to do because
Yep.
like you always wanted to work, she wants to work.
Yes.
That's what she wants to do.
That's true.
And even like Matthew, he has these interests here and there. He's really interested in playing an instrument and being in a band, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a musician.
Oh, yes, it does.
But, I saw him as an artist. Both our kids are really good at drawing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, he's just creative. So I don't know where that will take him, but knowing that he has this talent and a gift as a creative person,
Right.
writing and drawing and music. So
He likes to work too, but his is kind of, He's still a little young, so it's kind of up and down.
Well, he's motivated by money, though.
Well, that isn't everybody,
right.
Linda.
Well, no, no, really not. But I just think of it like this, that gifts and talents are from God, and then there's other things that are from your experience that you can help foster the different skills and abilities that can be developed from your gifts and talents. And then it's what they're interested in and how their personalities are bent. So what about today? Let's talk about the expectations.
The expectation today is that you're going to go to a 4-year school, you're going to have a good job right after you come out of school, and everything's going to be great.
Yeah. The house, the car, the manicured lawn, right?
Exactly. Just like the life we're living right now.
That's it. That's it.
So, and the pressure, the peer pressure is just ridiculous.
It is. And we're feeling that pull. We're trying to resist it. But we've had some books that we were reading. Here.
Yeah, let me get those books here.
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got a few books we've been reading over the years.
So you really didn't go back into the story of the books. So after when Catherine wanted to become a veterinarian, and Linda was living probably about 4 or 5 years ago, was it? We heard a podcast. Well, yeah. I heard a podcast on Focus on the Family by Alex
Chechik.
Well, actually, that wasn't the first book. The first book was, what's his name? Bill Bennett.
I read, Bill Bennett.
Is College Worth It?
Yeah.
So that kind of got us thinking a little bit outside the box type of stuff. And then I heard a podcast on Focus on the Family from Alex Chechik about beating the college debt trap. Mm-hmm. And that was am I skipping ahead on the outline? Yeah,
but that was a real eye-opener too. But first, was college worth it? You know, what's happening is people are in more debt
than ever before
with college. And they come out and get jobs that are not able to cover the debt.
Their debt.
4-year college is fine. It's okay for many people, but you really need to know what your return on investment is going to be.
Okay, so before we get into that book real quick, I just want to remind listeners that you're listening to WSJF, Married and Family Living with the Grasleys on 92.7 LPFM. So, Is College Worth It by Bill Bennett was quite an eye-opener. The thing about that is it's based on a kind of older information, the 2010 census, I believe it was.
I think it came out in 2015, so they were working off of the 2010 census data. But it was neat. They talk about different occupations and studies, how much college costs for those particular majors, and then what they would be making when they got out of college. It's just smart.
Smart, like it's budgeting, I guess, right? Because we always talk about the budget.
Right. Well, in college is a business. They're trying to sell you a product. So when you buy a car, you do a little research.
True.
You would do the same thing here.
Right. And a couple things that I thought were quite funny in that book is the more debt you take on, the better paying job you'll get, supposedly, which is not always true. And the 3 biggest influencers of the last decade were all college dropouts. Jobs, Gates, and Zuckerberg.
Right.
They all dropped out.
Right.
The one thing I really liked about that is, like you said, it does a return on investment. It gives you options for different schools. Like if your kid wanted to go into electrical engineering, instead of going to Princeton for $60,000 a year, there's a better school over here that is $15,000 a year.
Or go 2 years community college. Howard and Frederick and Carroll all have engineering programs.
Right.
And they transfer well to other less expensive schools.
Yeah, so that's really a great fact, numbers book. This is what's going on. Hopefully he does a repeat on that in 2020 with the 2020 census.
But and even not, when you're planning for this, the labor statistics are there. You can look those up. So if your kid is interested in, psychology, and you can look at what they're going to make versus what they're going to spend in college and make that decision. Or marine biology, we hear a lot of kids that we know are in these fields and they can't find a good paying job.
Right.
So
when I was trying to go to college, my uncle who went to Alfred Tech told me the worst thing you could do is go to college and not get a job when you come out. I remember him telling me that. He's like, you're going
Good
to college, figure out where you're going to work. So that book also predicts when the job openings will be. So, if you're graduating in June and October is when there's a lot of job openings. And it gets into the cost of college versus the return on investment like we talked about.
Yep. So good things to think about. So the other book that you were talking about, you ended up buying after you heard the podcast on Focus on the Family.
Yeah, so I heard the podcast and I thought to myself, this would be a great book for my wife to read and highlight for me so that I could...
So thoughtful.
Yes. And look, here's the highlight right here. But
it's about beating the college, what we call death trap or debt trap.
Either way, it's the death trap.
Yeah.
So these are basically nine traps, and then each chapter is a trap and how to avoid it.
Right.
So we're just going to go through these because we thought that was kind of good. And the first one is everyone must go to a 4-year school. Mm-hmm. And that reminded me of my younger brother who was 12 years younger than me. And he was not made for school, that kid. But my parents, right at that point in time, it was like you had to go to college. It sort of really...
They wanted him to try.
Kind of permeated into the mindset of people, like you have to go to college.
Right.
And
that decade made the difference.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did. He went there and he hated every minute of it. So he ended up lasting in the semester. But he was a kid who should have worked. Right?
Yeah.
So he
works well with his hands and people, and he has his own landscaping and snow removal business. And he's been doing that for, 15 years now?
He's been doing that a long time.
It's done well. Yeah.
But he was the kid who just said work.
So the other second trap is that it's just all going to work out. Just go to college and we'll figure it out. But you really need to plan for it. Like you said earlier, budgeting for it. We had a friend, which I'm so proud of this family. The parents both went to a really good school, and that's where they had met. And unfortunately, their marriage broke up. And so she was a single mom with 3 kids. And her second child had a plan to go. She was promised a scholarship to a 4-year, nice, good name school. And that scholarship fell through. And the mom told her, we can't go because we're not going to go in debt. It's just not something, that's not an option in our family to go in debt. I'm not going to have you graduate with that kind of debt. So she ended up going, I think, to Towson. She went to a state school close by, and she's doing really well. She's a good kid, but it was such a disappointment. But those are hard decisions.
Those are
they're
hard.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart decisions.
That is a very difficult one.
Mm-hmm. So the third trap?
The third one is spend a fortune on prestige. Let your head lead your heart. So if you have a heart for marine biology, let's say, and you get a 4-year degree in marine biology, but there's really no jobs in marine biology, that's letting your heart lead.
Right. Or the school, like maybe you and your wife went to Penn State.
Yes.
And you loved going to Penn State. You have so many great memories. You visit your alumni. So that's in your heart. You want your kid to go there. Well, maybe not the wisest choice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you visit Liberty University and you want your daughter to go to Liberty University no matter what the cost.
Did that happen?
It did. It
my
happened
goodness.
to me.
You were so excited. I was so shocked.
Like, we'll just figure this out.
So I sent Al. Al went on the college visits with Catherine because I thought he was the level-headed one. Because I would have fallen in love with it, too. I would have signed her up right then and there.
Oh, yeah, you would have.
But, yeah, so you kind of have to step back and really think about it with your head rather than your heart. So
yes.
Trap 4 was you can just choose your major on a whim.
Yeah, I think we kind of did that with Catherine when she was in 4th grade. She was going to be a veterinarian.
Yeah. Okay, we were planning early for her, I guess. Yeah. But I chose my major not on a whim. I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be an engineer. But I guess really I was using my heart. That was trap 4 or 3, but whatever one it was.
I chose mine on a whim. My mother said, hey, why don't you try this?
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
and it worked out really well for you, not so much for me. But anyway, know what you're getting into, right?
Yes.
Is the bottom line, whether it's return on investment or what the talent and gift of your child is.
Yeah. And then the 5th death trap or debt trap is student loans are always worth it. You know what you're getting. And that just is not, in the book, he describes how you should try to get grants first and not the regular student loan so that it's interest bearing and all that stuff. It gets pretty technically detailed on that.
He talks a lot about doing work study programs and working in the summers to get money, and even classes in the summer, living at home.
Yeah, and he talks about putting off going in debt, like almost down to the week. He's like, if you can put off another week, do it. If you can put off another week, another month, he's like, just keep on pushing it off and get closer and closer to your goal before you go into debt.
I heard a woman on the radio today say, you shouldn't take out a loan unless it's something worth it, like education. And I was like, oh no, I don't think that's right. I thought that was interesting.
You should take a loan out on like a 2020 Mustang GT 6-speed, something like that.
Grabber blue, right?
Yes, grabber blue, exactly.
All right, number 6. I can't work if I'm a student. Is that right? No.
Yeah, that's right. I can't work if I'm a student. So this is kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, where my parents are like, yeah, you should be working in high school.
Right.
But I think some parents have the mindset like, well, if you're going to college full time, you can't work, and you should be working toward your education. You should have some skin in the game type of thing. So.
And like you always say, it gives you also a way to learn how to work with other people in a team, how to deal with a boss.
How to show up on time, how to be reliable. Mm-hmm. I think like a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, I was watching CNBC. I do like to watch the stocks, and they were talking to some guy. I think it was actually Shark Tank. He's like, give me a kid who had a part-time job through college at McDonald's and moved up to assistant manager. He goes, that kid's reliable. He knows how to manage his time and knows deadlines.
Right.
So, I mean, I know people are like, oh, but school's so hard, but get them working so they can manage their time and know what's expected of them.
Right. 7 is I can't control my expenses.
Yeah, so if you can't control your expenses, who's gonna, Linda?
Who's gonna, right?
So you have to control your expenses. Hopefully you're training them up through high school to say this is kind of how money works.
Right.
And this is why your dad doesn't have any.
Yeah. So trap number 8 is, I'm going to get through college and I'll have a high-paying job. So it'll just be a breeze to get that job, right?
I know. That's what happened to me. And then
especially if you go to that prestigious named school.
That's right. So he details that a little bit more in that book, too, about how, well, it's not all that easy getting a high-paying job. And then depending on what field you went into, you might not be able to get that high-paying job.
Right. Well, and you have to start at the bottom, too.
Right.
Most people don't start even in the middle, let alone the top.
Right,
so.
right.
And what's the last one?
The last one is I've got a paycheck, I can live it up.
Woohoo!
So that is true, but if you have debt, you got to start making payments.
Right.
And you won't be able to live it up. So his whole thing is stay out of debt. So
stay out of debt, exactly. Well, we were going to just mention some other options. If you don't go to 2-year, 4-year school or beyond, there's always the option of trade schools, apprenticeship.
Yes, my dad always used to joke around with me, and he used to say, you know what I would do if I were you, Al? Yeah, and I'm like, what, Daddy? Because I'd be an underwater welder.
I was in the car taking the kids to school. Our neighbors ride with us every day, and the little boy sitting in the back said, I don't know if I want to go to college. And Matthew leaned back and said, you know what? You ought to be an underwater welder.
I'm glad that's permeating through the generations.
But so you saw a van on the road, right?
Yeah. So on my way to work one day, I saw, a Royal Electric van driving down 32 South. And on the side of the van is, now hiring electricians, no experience necessary. I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah.
If you've got a kid in high school who likes to tinker with stuff and doesn't want to go to college, go to Royal Electric.
Right.
Just maybe let them try it. I mean, why not work a minimum wage job and learn a skill and go on and make, you can have your own business by then.
Right.
So, but I thought that was interesting.
Well, I know there's a shortage in a lot of trades like that. Plumber and even the Boy Scouts of America for the welding profession has a merit badge to get young people interested in that. The Carroll County has the trade center where they, can learn. I don't know that everybody can get into it. We can't. Homeschoolers can't. But that would be cool. But there's some trade options, culinary and law enforcement and that kind of thing. And we know a lot of people, young people who are entrepreneurs. We know a friend that has does ASL, hairstylists, there's photographers. We talked about your brother as a landscaper. So
yeah, that was kind of like in the college debt trap too. They talk about if you're working in college, utilize your skills. Like if you're a photographer, put it out there that you do freelance photographer for 20 or what, just some kind of money,
just
anything
to get,
like that.
Yeah, the experience, right?
Get the experience and get some beer money in college. I mean, pizza money.
Pizza money, yeah.
In college, stuff like that. That's what I mean.
So then there's the military. Young people can enlist. They have jobs that, even if you don't want to stay in the military, that translate well to the private sector. Maybe they do want to go to college, but to a military academy, it's difficult to get in, but people do it, and it's a really neat way to serve your country, or even ROTC.
Right. So we have a couple people that are kind of going that route that we know about. That is a good option.
It is.
And another thing we kind of talk about, well, in the homeschool community, I think it's more prevalent about having a gap year where it's like, oh, take a year off type of stuff to figure out what you want to do.
But they're smart about it too, that, you got to get a job, maybe work on shadowing possibilities, particularly if you don't know what you're going to do, or take a class or two at the community college. And then that way you can kind of feel your way through, hey, geez, I took this class and it was really boring. I can't imagine going into that field. Or maybe you thought you want to go into some kind of biology and you realize it's too difficult. Too difficult for you. Yeah,
so my big thing is I want a productive child of society. I mean, I want my kids to move out.
We've always said that, right? I mean, and that's one of the reasons we homeschooled, was to really let them learn how to be part of the whole world.
The whole world, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up here, and I hope you've gleaned some information off here from Lynn and I. We're going to post this on our Facebook page and send it to Danny, all the books that we read.
Yeah.
Well, that Linda read and highlighted.
Yeah, we'll highlight.
Gave it to me.
We'll put a few of them on, and out of this came probably our next episode. We think I have a couple of ideas now, but really talking about how kids can get a good work ethic, be self-reliant in our culture today, be more independent.
Right.
And I think that's how we're going to roll it out. And also hope. It just seems like if you listen to the news, everything is just hopelessness. And I think there's so much hope that we can focus on. So,
and I don't want you to think that we got this all figured out either. We're still struggling here. But
and we do have this pull still to send our kids to college.
We still feel like, oh, that kid's got to go to college. We have to go to college. But just sharing that experience with the other mom who's going through the same thing at the chicken barbecue in August.
Yeah.
Really kind of got Lynn and I talking. So if you're feeling, I think, we're kind of isolated in society, and you feel like you're the only one going through these feelings and going through this indecision about the future of your child or even your marriage or something. And, everybody's feeling that way. Right. Just share a little bit.
Share with each other. It's open up a little bit.
Yeah, the burden's easier when it's like, oh, they're going through the same thing. Right. It always looks greener on the other side. Like, oh, my neighbor's lawn looks much better than my lawn. It's,
it does, though. That's the problem. No.
So, I mean, I don't want to be. Just open up to other people in the community. And, it just might inspire you. They might have some information that'll help you, and you might have some information that helps them.
And when somebody opens up to you, encourage and support them where they are. Anyway, just to kind of recap, parents, your children the best, no matter what. You know what their gifts are, their talents are, their interests, their personalities. You know their circumstances the best, and don't ever forget that. And be your children's advocate.
Yeah, even if you doubt yourself, you are your child's best advocate. So
that's right. And we're going to be the best guidance counselor ever.
That money can buy.
That money can buy, which isn't much. And don't worry about what others are doing. Just, again, be encouraging and supportive of others on a different path, and encourage your friends and family.
All right. Well, that was a great episode. I was kind of surprised it went off that well. So thank you for listening. We'll see you next week, or next month, I should say. Yes. WSJF 92.7 FM.
Thanks for listening to WSJF. Thanks, Al and Linda. See you next month.